I tell stories. How could I do otherwise? My father and grandfather were inveterate storytellers. We Irish love a good story. We're Irish and proud to be. Yet curiously, no one ever spoke of Ireland. My connection to Ireland? I confess to Irish priests, Riley, Reagan, and McCarthy, and St. Patrick's Day, a one-day, unholy mess of Irish excess. Truth be told, I grew up Catholic, not Irish. Sunday Mass and Catholic Youth Organization dances, Catholic schools and confraternity, the Stations of the Cross and confession served as constant reminders, as if we could forget, that we were Catholic first, any and all nationalities second. My family names, however, rang of Ireland: Kelly, Sullivan, Horrigan, and Lyons. 14 of my 16 great-great-grandparents emigrated from Ireland to New York City. But as each new wave of ancestors surged ashore, each successive generation washed over the rest, leaving few traces of familial or cultural inheritance. Perhaps it was better to forget. When my ancestors died, their voices and stories vanished with them. All but one. My father was working in the family butcher shop in Castle Blaney when the trouble started, my maternal grandfather, Allie, said of his father, George Gorman. A policeman entered the shop and started cuffing him around. My father was only 15, but he didn't take guff from anyone. I'm afraid he responded, and then some. And then, that night, in the winter of 1888, my father packed a bag and left for America. He never saw his family or Ireland again. That was the only story that linked me to my Irish ancestry. 20 years ago, my family and I, including my mother, Dorothy Gorman Hale, visited Castle Blaney, where we had arranged to meet a local who grew up near the family farm. We drove a mile from town, turned onto a dirt road, and soon the old run-down farmhouse, which was used for storage by the current owner, appeared. My mother entered the house while my family and I walked the property. Soon, we entered the house, where my mother was silently standing in front of the fireplace, staring. And although she didn't express it as such, my mother appeared to be on a pilgrimage and was, at last, standing in front of a holy shrine. I waited, not knowing what she was feeling. I felt my mother's emotions gather. It's the first time I've ever felt my father was connected to something, she said. All we knew was when he was a child, he lived a miserable existence on the streets of New York City. But it was as if nothing or no one came before his childhood. It's the first time I've ever felt warm for my grandfather, George. No one ever had anything nice to say about him, but now that seems so insignificant, as does his reason for coming to America. But standing here in the house where my grandfather was born, I just feel better knowing there really is a link, a connection between my father, my grandfather, and Ireland. My family didn't speak about the past, yet the roots of my existence are intertwined and braided in the stories of men and women like George Gorman, my mother, and those who have gone before them. I often think of my mother standing in front of that fireplace, the expressiveness of her silence more powerful than any words I can write or speak. And it was in my mother's moment of silence that I recognized the human need for connection and how we are as one, truly of each other. And stories connect the past to the present. Stories connect us. I tell stories. How could I do otherwise?